And we are live on Underground Wicked Radio. We got Lizardman up here tonight. How's everybody doing? So, man, I gotta ask, starting out, what made you decide to become Lizardman?
Okay, first I gotta ask though. Are we under FCC rules, or can I say whatever the hell I want?
You can say whatever you want, man. It's Underground.
Okay. I figured when Underground's in the name, you figure you can get away with some shit. Oh, but yeah, I have pulled that before. I have been like in the middle of the interview and just casually, because I do it like punctuation, like a lot of people. I happen to swear a lot. Fuck it, whatever. But, when that first F-bomb gets dropped and you see the faces of everybody else, I can't see your face right now because I'm on the phone, but, you see the face of the person go white, and then you realize you're like, oh shit, they actually are under reg, so they can't, they gotta go back and bleep it and all that, but cool. To your question, why the Lizardman? Why the fuck not? It really does come down to that in a lot of ways. It's, you get an idea in your head, it's why a Ford, why a Chevy, why a black shirt, why a picket fence, why a lawn ornament, why does anybody do fucking anything, right? It's because you think it's going to be fun, you'll enjoy it, and to me this was, something that seemed like, and still does, I mean, it's not like I regret it in any way at all, but it was a matter of, what, I'm going to go for this, and I just, I went for it.
I remember meeting you at Tail of the Pub. I believe they were touching up your neck at the time. You didn't have your teeth or your tongue done.
At where?
I think it was called Tail of the Pub. It was in Plattsburgh, New York.
It might have been like, where did I spend a lot of time back in there? I remember this. I used to go to Monopole a lot. That's the one thing. I'm thinking of the place down next to the pizza place next door.
Right by the bridge.
But anyway, so yeah, down there, because I lived on Bridge Street. I would walk down. I lived right across the street from the train station for a year in a little apartment over there. And me and my old roommates back then, we were just fixtures, walked straight down the street into the bar. That would have been, about 94-ish, which is, at that time, everything I'd had done, could be hidden. It was very early on. I was just out of school. Getting work done was just starting to happen, and I was being very, very cautious about it. Because, I was, as your basic starving artist, just graduated from college.
That's what's up. I used to work over at Moldroyd over there in Plattsburgh.
Okay.
Plastic factory.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
that was the same time. I was at Diamond Comics then too. That was the whole thing. Like I said about being careful was, this is a great idea and all in my mind, but I still needed to be able to, go to the warehouse or go wait table, make money somehow because there was none at that time.
I can't believe how famous it's made you. What? Who hit you up for Ripley's? Believe it or not. That
really comes down to Ripley's is the real engine behind the reason that. I would probably be doing just fine. Busking and street performing, whatever. And there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of really cool, wild, interesting people out there that you've never fucking heard of. Because it takes like some random thing like that. And for me, it was when they relaunched the Ripley's TV show. It broadcast in 2000, but we were filming it in 98 and 99. And they found me through internet. This was back when TV people just first started using the internet. A lot of the work and TV stuff that I did in the 90s was a result of being one of the only, not just sideshow performers, but people with a website, right? Like I built my own computers. I was into the internet. I had a website before Red Lobster did. Back an old AOL page, and I used this stuff. So when TV people started realizing they could use it to find stuff, the Ripley's people found me, cast me. They liked what was being filmed when we were filming, and somebody made the decision, we're going to use this guy to advertise the whole show. That went on to me working with the museums and the books and going on worldwide tours promoting Ripley stuff. And really, that's the reason that, I think the majority of people who have any idea I exist know why I exist. It's the Ripley stuff. And other things have fed into that, the stuff that and it's not that I'm not proud of the Ripley stuff, but the stuff that I feel like, oh yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that, and I'm like, but it's not what I'm known for, is things like the music tours and the festivals, and the people that know me from that, like when I meet somebody and they say, hey dude, I met you at the Jaeger tour, or I saw you, at Ozfest doing all this, I'm like, I kind of assume that person's going to be cool. Whereas somebody's like, oh yeah, my kids have a Ripley's book with you on the cover. I have no idea where that person's going. Sometimes they turn out to be really great, and other times they're like, man, I don't know if my kid should be looking at you, you know. So, yeah, it's just that minimal judgment.
People can be.
What up, Lizardman?
How's it going, homie?
Hey, who's on now?
All good. What's up, DJ Snickers?
Chilling. Tell them who you are.
We up in St. Louis at 636.
Go ahead and ask a question, homie.
Dude, Lizardman, I totally fucking respect your shit, bro. You're doing what you want to do. You're totally doing what you want to do, being who you want to be, and that is fucking beautiful, bro.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I encourage everybody to do that. Like, yeah, every now and then, I get that question. People like, what do you want people to think? What do you want to do? I'm like, look, you don't have to like, even I appreciate that a lot of people do like particularly what I've done, but I'm like, just look past it a little bit. Just think about it this way. You may not want to be green, you might not want to split tongue or tattoos or whatever else, but you do want to be you and get to go through life more or less on your own terms, right? I think that's something everybody can get behind, and that's all I'm trying to do. And I encourage other people to do as well.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, that's what I was telling Snickers, about his show. I'm like, man, do what you love, but do what makes you happy. I mean, that's all we got.
Yeah, exactly. Get out there. And the big thing for me too is that, like, when I meet people a lot on the road who afterwards are like, people say shit like, I wish I could. They're like, well, dude, take a shot. There's nothing, like, right now we're doing an underground radio show. You want to do radio? Hey, man, it's 2018 now. You got a phone, you probably got a computer. Like, the technology is there in your hand. Take a swing. The only thing really stopping you from, there might be other things stopping you from making it, but there's nothing stopping you from trying.
Exactly.
Oh, most assuredly, dude. The only thing that's stopping you is your own will. I mean, if you will it into existence, then there it is. I mean, it will happen.
Yep.
So I got to ask, how did you get into sword swallowing? I've seen some of your videos. That is dangerous.
Right.
Shit,
I mean,
man.
well, it's funny. Like, I don't want to ruin my own thing. I don't want to step on my own money here, but as dangerous as sword swallowing it is, it's kind of, sword swallowing is one of the things where, yeah, it's dangerous, but it's also kind of not. Like, I think that I'm in a lot more danger riding around in a car than I am swallowing a sword. But that's only because when I'm swallowing a sword, I'm in absolute total control. I don't have to worry about some other jackass swallowing a sword next to me swerving into my lane,
That's right. Oh, that's
right. So, but the thing is, like, yeah, it is true. Like, if you fuck up sword swallowing, you die. But you hardly ever fuck up sword swallowing. Whereas driving a car, you fuck up, you might die, you might get a dent, you might get a scratch, whatever, but people fuck up all the time. And that's why I worry more about being in a car than I do about swallowing a sword. I got into that stuff because as a kid, I was a big Ripley's fan. I like Ripley's That's Incredible, all that shit, the sort of classic TV variety of the 80s that I grew up on. But I was one of those kids that when I saw somebody on TV breathing fire and swallowing a sword, I didn't just go, wow, that's cool. I went, wow, that's cool. Can I do that? I'm the reason that there are all those warnings on those TV shows. Don't try this shit at home. Because they knew people like me were trying it at home. And yeah, I became, throughout the 80s as a teenager and then into the 90s, I sort of, discovered a lot of this circus and sideshow stuff because I was interested in the weird and the unusual, and I knew where to find it. And then I was teaching myself how to do these stunts that, and it turns out right place, right time. A big part of my success, and I think a big part of anyone who's ever had any success at anything, is just dumb luck of being the right person at the right time in the right place. If I had been really into sideshow, if I'd been me, but born 5 years earlier, it would have been too soon. I might have had some success, but I wouldn't have had there wasn't the market for sideshow that there is today. Like, even now, people come in, like, I know guys, and I work with them all the time, younger generation coming up, people in their 20s, and so, cause I'm in my 40s now, people in their 20s in sideshow are coming up, and it's funny, like, you hear them talk about, like, oh, well, there's too many people this, too many people that, we're competing too much for the job. I'm like, are you kidding me? It wasn't better before. before there were less people competing for the jobs, but there were a lot less jobs. Almost zero, depending on how far back you go, because sideshow and circus took a really hard nosedive in the 70s and 80s and only has slowly recovered now in the 90s and 2000s. So we're just getting back to the point where there's like a lot of work out there, to the point, it's still hard for someone. If you want to find a sword swallower, you can find one, but if you want to book one, I mean, there's more living working sword swallowers today than there has been at any other time in recorded history. And there's still more potential jobs than there are sword swallowers.
Have you ever thought of playing for the gathering of Juggalos?
I would do it in a heartbeat. I've never done the gathering, but I've done other Juggalo events, and I know a lot of different, like I did a thing in South Dakota where it was essentially a tattoo show, but it was kind of other stuff going on. It was like a mini festival focused on tattoo art. But the people that put it together and run it turned out they were, a local group of Juggalos, and one of them was doing promotions and events. I've only had great experiences. Anytime I've met anyone who said, "Hey, I'm a Juggalo," that person has turned out to be really fucking cool. I would. Okay, cool. Yeah, I wouldn't describe myself. I wouldn't describe myself as a Juggalo. I mean, there's some ICP stuff that I like. They're not a regular sort of, band in rotation in my listening. But I'm one of those people who says, if you find something you like, you fucking grab a hold of it and enjoy it. And that's sort of like when people talk about Juggalos as a group, broadly like that. I always say, like, what's the fucking problem? So they found something they like. Good for them. We should all be so lucky.
I was Juggalo News official radio for a couple years.
Oh, shit. Cool, man.
I have radio drops on ICP, Twisted. I've interviewed 6,893 underground artists.
Holy shit.
Quite a few.
Damn, man. Yeah. That's the sort of thing. Like, I've also found, like, when, again, like, anybody who's ever said to me, like, I'm a Juggalo, like, they identify as that. It's weird. Like, it's that, it's the opposite of the stereotype that people like to put out there. It's the same thing with potheads, right? They're like, oh, fucking lazy potheads in the couch. And I'm like, dude, everybody that I know that smokes weed has like 3 different businesses and is working their ass off. Everybody I know that calls himself a Juggalo is out there trying to do shit. Like this, I don't know where this, the hanging around not doing shit comes from. Everybody I know is busy as fuck.
That is true, man. That's because we're the outcast, like you, man. Being Lizardman, you're an outcast yourself.
They want it, yeah. The problem is that people have no respect because misery loves company. If you get to do what you love, other people immediately hate you for it because they think like, well, why do I have to go to my job that I hate? He gets to go to a job that he loves. That motherfucker ain't working. I'm working because I hate my job. It's as if you're not miserable. You're not working. And that's bullshit. It's just it's a toxic mentality that needs to go the fuck away. Like, yeah, just because I'm having fun, I'm not working. And you know what? You should get to have some fun too. I mean, I've worked shitty jobs. I mean, I've worked a lot of horrible, shitty, unskilled manual labor jobs, but I occasionally had fun with them because I could just deal with the people being like, hey guys, we're going to dig a fucking ditch today, but you know what? Fuck it. Let's dig a ditch together. We don't have to make this shitty.
So let's touch base.
Yeah, it's all your perspective, man.
Let's touch base on your.
It's only as bad. It's only as bad as you make it to be.
Yep. Let's touch base on your music, man. What made you decide to start a band, Lizard Synard? I watched some of your videos. You guys are actually pretty good.
Oh, but well, that's they're yeah. The band turned out, though, I should say the music turned out good, probably in a large part in spite of me. And it wasn't so much that it was my decision as from the years of doing, especially the Jägermeister music tours and some of the music festivals that I did, I got to meet just incredible artists and people, and a lot of them had ideas like, I would love to do this with you, or, have you ever thought about trying this and whatever? And my thing is that I've always said, I have no musical gift at all. Like anything musical is work for me. I don't really play any instruments. I've never had that skill. I have a great deal of respect to people that do. And one of my buddies, Mossy Vaughn, who was part of the Hevels, and a bunch of other bands before, it's been a studio musician, been a producer. I met him through the Jägermeister music tours, and he basically assembled a group of people that he had been wanting to do music with, and put together a kick-ass band and made music, and then sent it to me, and he said, you pick out stories and ideas or whatever you want to do, and we're going to figure out how to bring them together. And, that's what we did.
That's fucking cool, man. I mean, that, meeting people through this industry, if you would, is I've had great experiences, man. I mean, you guys are cool as fuck. Everybody that I've ran into has been pretty fucking chill, dude. Nobody's had like that holier than thou attitude. Everybody has been trying to show love and get shit popping, and that's fucking cool. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, I think that what happens is, especially, I will say this, like, sometimes with like studio industry people, like I've met people that are, what you're talking about, that you'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you, with your attitude? But the majority, like you're saying though, the absolute majority have been really great. And I think that's because most of my experience comes with like road touring, not manufactured, acts that are going to be put out after an ad campaign and everything else. Like people that actually go out and play live shows. Because if you live on the, when you go out on the road and you do, let's say the tour that I did with Hatebreed, for Jägermeister, we did 57 shows in 60 dates. There were 3 days off in a 2 month period. And that was only because we had to drive so far that it was impossible to do a show the next day. There is no room for bullshit when you live in a submarine of a tour bus with people under that kind of pressure cooker environment, having to put on a giant rock show every fucking night, day after day, day in, day out. If you've got a bad attitude, if you've got bullshit, if you don't know how to do it, you are gone. And everybody appreciates everybody else because they know that if one person gets a cold, the whole operation is fucked. Like, we all need each other. So then, the lead singer will be like, I get the standing ovation at the front of the crowd every night, but he's cool to the dude that, to the drum tech, the security, whatever, because he knows that every single person there is going to be there tomorrow, and we all need each other. Like, you can't be a dick and survive in that environment.
No, most assuredly not, dude. I mean, you can't be a dick and survive in any environment. Your time will come.
I don't know. Politics seems to let them get away with it for quite a while. But
quite a while.
Politicians some of them seem to be able to get away with being a dick forever. But hopefully we can gradually reel some of that shit in.
But I mean, to co-sign on what you were saying earlier about being inspired by the other freak shows, so to speak, the Sword Eaters and whatnot. Same thing with me in music, bro. The first time I heard Metallica back in the early 80s, I was like, that's what the fuck I want to do.
Right.
Everybody, like you said, same thing. Everybody else was like, dude, this is fucking killing. I'm like, I know, I want to do it. I want to be a part of something like that.
Yeah. And it's too, like you bring up Metallica, like 80s metal. Again, that's what I grew up on and why it was so wild for me. Yeah, like the fact that I spent the first tour that I did with Slayer for Jägermeister just constantly sitting there going like, holy shit, wait, I'm just standing next to Kerry. He's like fucking there, and he just said hi. Like, I just had a salad. Like, there is no way that I could even, like, I think about it now, like, how could I possibly, if I could go back in time, what would I say to like 13-year-old me in 1985 to explain to him that in 2004, he's not going to be at a Slayer show. He's going to be on stage as part of a Slayer show. Like, that to me still is hard to say, like, that's real, huh? That happened? I'm like, I know these guys now. Yeah. It's just wild that's one of those things for the path in life when people say like, they'll, did you regret it? Are you worth it? I go, is it worth it? Are you kidding me? I don't believe that these are real things. If you wrote a movie where my life happened to a character, I'd be like, that's bullshit. That's not believable. But here I am.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I mean, the closest, feeling I can relate to it is like a fucking orgasm, dude. I mean, it is. Like, when you're up there and people are digging the shit that you're putting down, you feel like a fucking god. You know, you're like, oh my God, the energy is so real. Like my spirit is whole right now.
And for me, this is something that I've started to feel like recently, some movies like last 8 years or so. Because after doing like the big musicals, I started doing a lot more street performing and getting out there. And I've always, I'm out there on Saturday. What you're talking about, the energy and stuff, the energy is real, but it was always in my mind because I'm very much a skeptic, a science person. You know, I want to know how the shit works. I want to explain it. So I'm like, yeah, I feel the energy, but I'm like, what the fuck is that energy? What is energy? And like what I've sort of come to realize now that at least for me, that high, that stage orgasm that you're talking about, which is 100% real for people who have never been on stage or think it's scary. Yeah, when you're up there, dude, it is. And it sounds true because everybody talks about the biggest, but it's fucking true, right? Like there's nothing like having a bunch of people just getting off on you.
Nothing. And to me, there's nothing like it.
And I think from like because when street performing, because there's not even a stage, like, but you're literally eye to eye with your audience, except for the ones that sit down. You're there. And I realized.
We got one of my co-hosts on that just called in. He wants to ask Lizardman a question. Go for it, Big Herm.
Yeah, shoot, man.
All right. Hey, how are you?
Good. Was that the question?
The question I wanted to ask was, how did your wife feel about you being Lizardman and touring?
Oh, cool. I just want to wrap up that last line about the street performing thing. Is that energy to me? It's the happiness. I started to realize I'm like, when I make a crowd of people happy, that's what I'm feeling come back to me is their joy. And that's why that's my personal little theory about what that energy really is. It's like feeling the happiness that you're providing to people. To the question at hand though, how does
Absolutely.
So about my wife, here's the thing about me and my wife. And, we've always understood that they can be hard for people on the outside looking in to understand what it is. But we have a very sort of personal normal. What has been normal for us our entire relationship is completely different than the way most people would ever be in a relationship. In 1999, I came through Austin, Texas for the first time. And she came out to the show. She came backstage. We partied. We hooked up. She was on the tour bus with me till dawn. In the morning, I got her a taxi. She went back home and I rolled out of town on the bus, but we stayed in touch. And so we had sort of a long distance back and forth. When I was between tours, I would start coming down and, and visit her and hanging out. And then and at that point, I was living out of my car. When I wasn't on a tour, I was living on the road, but I was pretty much on the road full time then. I was either on a bus tour or driving around the country doing my own shows in between. But yeah, with little pit stops in Austin to see her. By 2001, we had gotten an apartment together down here and moved in together. 2003, we're married. So what's normal for us is to see each other for a couple of hours and then me head out of town and we don't see each other again for weeks. I mean, now of course it's, I leave home, I go away, but I might go away for 5 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks at a time. And, before I come back and see us, that to us is our normal. And I get other people are like, oh, how do you away? How do you do it? I'm like, look, it's just how it's always been. This is our relationship and we're going to keep doing it because it keeps working.
Hell yeah. So let's talk about your tour you're doing overseas. What you got planned over there?
Let's see what I got coming up. Well, I mean, I've got AmJam coming up, which isn't overseas, back up in New York in Syracuse in January. And that's going to be, pretty much the only thing I do before I head back down to Australia, which has kind of been my bread and butter for about 6 years now. I went down for the first time in 2012 and I've gone back, every year since for the Adelaide Fringe Fest. Which is just a big variety festival, kind of like the Edinburgh Fringe Fest, which is sort of the largest of its kind and the best well known in the world. Adelaide's basically number 2. Fantastic event. I do that for about 5 weeks with some of my Australian friends down there. We set up a tent and we just run a traditional grind show out of a tent. It's called Deja Voodoo. And then this year I'm going to be staying on for an additional couple of weeks and doing the Royal Easter Show in Sydney, which is sort of like a World's Fair, but it's all Australia. It's a giant event they do on the Olympic grounds. And They have everything from rodeos to logging competitions to sideshows, livestock. The Australian bull whipping championships take place, which are really wild. Like you see these little kids with Australian stock whips in either hand, just going off like machine guns. You know, just an incredible event. Like the event itself is just something to experience.
Hell yeah! Can you? I usually ask about halfway through the interview. Do you mind doing a radio drop for Underground Wicked Radio, saying this is Lizardman? You're listening to DJ Snickers on Underground Wicked Radio, and then say links where people can find you, your fan page, and even links to your music.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I wish I could be like more direct with the links. I'll do it probably, but it's just going to end up being, my site, Lizardman, because we're actually going through some web nonsense right now with trying to set things up properly for the Synard stuff, because we want to go back in and do like some other studio stuff and put out a package maybe sometime later this year or next. But we're having to do a little bit of wrangling because honestly we half-assed it the first time around, and now we're having to go back and clean up our mess.
Oh, I hear you on the website. We're making one ourselves now.
Cool. So let's see. So it's going to be hey, this is the Lizardman, and you're listening to DJ Snickers on Underground Wicked Radio. You can check me out, thelizardman.com, something like that.
Yep. Go for it.
Did I miss anything?
Nope, you got
it. This is the Lizardman, and you're listening to me with DJ Snickers on Underground Wicked Radio. If you want to find out more about the Lizardman, yeah, that's me, and talking about myself in the third person, you go to thelizardman.com. Thelizardman.com. Got to put that the in the front of it, or you get some weird hoax nonsense from South Carolina. Thelizardman.com.
Perfect. I'll cut that later. I'll send that to you when it's all done. All right, let's touch base on you hanging from hooks. I can't remember what it's called at the moment. I've seen some of those videos.
Well, I mean, we generally just call it suspension. Some people call it body suspension, flesh hook suspension. Suspension is probably the more general term, and then some people like to get more specific just to specify that we're hanging from hooks or whatever. I was very, very lucky in that regard. Like I knew about about suspension as a practice, ritualistically. I knew about it being done in India and the subcontinent by the Sioux. I knew about the Native American, Okipa and other rituals like that. But I never had much interest in it myself until I met the guys from TSD, which is Traumatic Stress Discipline. And one of the first suspension performance groups go back to the early 90s, founded by Alan Faulkner, who at one point studied with Sakir Musafar and others. And just, he's, a lot of people call him the father of modern suspension because of the work he's done in making it popular and, letting people know about it and just educating proper technique, rigging, all this stuff. I did a show with them in New York City in 1998 where there were only two acts on the bill that the lawyers wanted to talk to: the freak and the guys that were hanging from hooks. We were the two they were worried about. So we bonded very quickly because we had a common enemy as soon as we showed up: the lawyers. Yeah.
Big Herm, you want to take a question?
Yes. I don't know if y'all already talked about the whole Ripley's Believe It or Not thing, but
a little bit.
I remember. Okay. I remember seeing, like, when I was in elementary school, I remember seeing a book where it had all the different people associated with Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Right.
And then I remember seeing you. I remember seeing you in a book, and it was so fascinating. How was that whole experience for you, just being on Ripley's Believe It or Not?
Yeah, I don't want to go so far as the bittersweet. It's more good than bad. Like the good of it is that I grew up as a fan of Ripley's. As for me, one thing that Ripley's will always be is a treasured part of my childhood that exposed me to things that I have, loved and been interested in for the rest of my life ever since. So getting to do the TV shows and stuff like that. And one of my biggest inspirations is a guy that was known as the Great Omi, in the 1930s and 40s, who was a tattooed man from the UK who worked with Ripley's very famously. And I'm like, I'm kind of following in the footsteps of my inspiration by working with it. And it's done huge things for him. We talked before about how, like, that's the main way that people know me is the Ripley. So it's done so much with me. It's fantastic. The other thing and this is sort of the I guess it's the dark lining of the silver cloud because it's not much, but it taught me a lot about the business. I definitely, because Ripley's is a powerful multinational corporation owned by Canadian billionaires. And, I love what they do and I love the message and I love the content. But when they play hardball at the corporation, they play hard. So I've definitely butted heads with them on some stuff, but overall it's mostly good.
So when you opened up on stage with Slipknot, did you ever get to talk to them? How were they in person?
Talk with them, dude. I lived within 10 feet of all of them for 90 days. Nice. Like that was a little sarcastic. Let me take that back. Here's the thing. That's a question that me and my old stage assistant, and he used to really love it. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world because people would say this like, "Hey man, do you guys ever get to meet the band?" And I'm like, dude, it's so funny because if once you're on a tour, you realize you're like, not only do you meet everybody, like you shit next to everybody. Not only have I met the band, I know what their shit smells like. I know who chews with their mouth open. I know who had an argument with their girlfriend an hour ago. Like you literally live and exist on top of each other. So yeah, the Slipknot guys, like I said, fantastic. Paul, rest in peace, was so nice to me for no reason whatsoever. Like we showed up for the beginning of that tour. And I'm just the MC for Jägermeister, and I had a little pair of panties that I wanted to sell for merch and other stuff. And all merch has to go through the headliner and their merch company have to approve everything. And, I just asked around, like, hey, who should I ask about whether or not I can get something on the merch table? And I just happened to say it within earshot of him. And at that point, I didn't know any of these guys at all. We hadn't had an official meeting or whatever. They didn't even know that they probably knew I was going to introduce them, but we hadn't had that moment. And he just comes walking over. He's like, what do you want to do? And I go, we got a hat and a pair of panties. Walks me right over to his merch guy who's setting up their merch table for the night. And he goes, their shit goes up with ours, blah, blah, blah. You guys figure it all out. Like just out of nowhere, just for no other reason than I was on that tour. Corey Taylor I often say this, that Corey Taylor and Kerry King showed me the type of, if I ever get anywhere close to their level, the sort of person I want to be at that level. They're just, both of them great. But I mean, the entire Slipknot crew was just so fucking good to everybody else around. And yeah, I mean, I still talk to those guys, from time to time. When shows come through, I'll go out and see them. The Slipknot and the Stone Sour tours that we did for Jägermeister were some of the most fun. Like all those tours were great fun, but those just sort of went on because everybody involved in them was all about like, hey, we're going to have a good time, helping a whole bunch of people have a good time every night. And what's better than that? Just great attitude, great fun.
Dude, the Slipknot, I'm glad to hear that they were cool. That's a huge inspiration for me.
What is the thing? Like they will.
I mean, I liked Rage. I really liked Rage back in the day, and but it wasn't quite edgy enough for me, I guess. But then Slipknot came along, and I'm like, that's what's up. Like, I've always kind of had a flow to my vocals, and the way Corey did it, I'm like, yeah, that's what's up. Like, he's rhythmic with it, you know what I mean? There's like a pulse to his lyrics, and I'm like, yeah, he's driving that pulse. Like, that's what the fuck is up,
And that dude has range. Like, he's one of the few people, in my opinion, that can really pull off going from
everything,
make your eyes pop out of your skull bleeding, and then sing a ballad and have them both kick ass.
Yeah, everything, dude. Dude's got a hell of a set of pipes on him, dude. I've seen him live at least half a dozen times. I got their logo fucking tatted on me, bro. I mean, maggot for life.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing, like, sort of, as far as like, those guys, it's weird. When I see press about them, I always feel like, how did that situation happen? Because I see things written and I'm like, there was never anything like that to it. Like, they would fight with each other, well, like bands do, like brothers. So like, they're in-house, like, if somebody was pissed at somebody else, that could get pretty heated. But they kept that contained amongst themselves. Everything, like, even if two of them were at each other's throats, they were still, like, at catering with the opening bands and everybody else, like, being cool. It didn't spill over.
That's more business right there. That's hard to see.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I guess that part of it too is that, like, I didn't tour with them and get to meet them and get to know them until about 2004, which means I guess they were a little bit more mature at that point. Like, I missed some of there were a lot of stories about, like, well, man, back in 99 when you set me on fire on stage, that shit wouldn't have flown. But now that shit wasn't happening anymore. So I think there's a process there too, where, like, people kind of, there is that first rush where you're like, holy shit, we can do whatever the fuck we want, and you do a bunch of dumb shit, and then you calm down and go, like, all right, if we can do whatever we want, let's do good shit.
Hell yeah. Big Herm, go ahead and take a question, homie. You've been sitting in the background silent.
So how was your experience on the Daily Show?
Which one? I don't know. I want to look into this. I might be one of the only people that's not like a quote unquote real star that has appeared on every version of the Daily Show.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. The original Daily Show before Jon Stewart, I was a moment of zen in the first season. And it was really weird because they had a producer, they wanted to do a segment with me then where they were going to do like this Valentine's Day segment. So they asked me to send down some video footage just for review, for the resident. And I sent it down, and there was a mistake with me because the segment got cut, but somebody else at the production had seen the show and put it in as a moment of zen. So I ended up calling him about, hey dude, what the hell? I just sent you a couple of, quick clips, and now you broadcast them without telling me. And they were really cool, and they made it right. They, cut me a check after the fact. And he was like, yeah, what happened was somebody saw it and loved it so much and didn't know that it wasn't a submission and put it on the air. And like, so I was like, yeah, cool. No harm, no foul. You guys were upstanding about it. And then with, Jon Stewart, when he was doing the Daily Show, I had another thing where they used, a clip of me. And then, towards the end, his last season as the host was when Samantha Bee came to Austin and we did a political segment, and working with her was great. I've always liked, Samantha Bee's work. I always thought she was hilarious. I could tell, like, when we actually shot the piece, because we shot it kind of early morning, that, not just her, I think the entire crew had kind of been run ragged a little bit. So no, they weren't all on, at their best. Whereas I was like, hey, I'm going to get you to go do the Daily Show with Samantha Bee. So I was the annoying, perky, happy guy on set. But it was a fun piece, a very positive experience, paid union rates, which is always nice.
Have you ever got to meet Catman? I was doing some research on him here, trying to get him on.
Stalking Cat.
Yeah, I guess he passed away.
He passed away a couple years ago now. Dennis and I, we first met through BME, the Body Modification Easing website that I used to write for and was good friends with the founder of. And so we met at events that he put on. But then when the new Ripley show came out in 2000, Dennis the Stalking Cat was also featured by Ripley's. And so he and I ended up doing a lot of promotional appearances together, like at Ripley's museums, and we hang out. And he was a really, really just a lovely human being, but he had a rough life by anyone's standards. He had a rough childhood. He had a rough adulthood. There was addiction, cancer. There's a lot of things at play. And what a lot of people don't sort of realize, like, one of the big differences between him and me is that I did this on purpose with the idea of, I'm a performance artist. I did this for the purpose of people seeing what I do and me do it. Whereas Dennis was living out something much more personal. And so it was harder for him to deal with the people coming up and, taking photos and being, you're the guy from Ripley's, like that. Because, for me, that's everything I ever wanted. For him, it was a burden. And, unfortunately, I think it might have played a role in his sort of depression and ultimate suicide. Unfortunately.
I didn't know he committed suicide. I knew he had passed away. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's one of those things where when someone takes their own life, very often you just say they passed away. But unfortunately, this was that situation.
That's horrible. So how was your experience on the Tyra Banks show? I actually got to see that on YouTube.
Tyra Banks. Oh yeah. Did you like my wife as a blonde? That ridiculous wig they put on her.
That was a wig?
Yeah. They put her. The dress didn't fit her. They couldn't show her from the back because that entire dress is like gathered up and pinned up in the back because they got the size wrong. And then they put that wig on her head cost more than our fee for appearing on the show. They got some insane, super expensive real hair wig. Like the hairstylist at the show was losing her shit over it. Was like, oh my god, this wig's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It was like, we don't even know why you're putting a wig on her to begin with, but whatever. It's like my experience with the Tyra Banks show is twofold. One, it was great because I got to do TV with my wife and get paid for it and have a free trip to New York. Two, Tyra Banks is dumber than a brick. She is literally the most clueless TV personality I have dealt with in my entire career. Contrast that, Maury Povich, brilliant on top of it, controlling everything, locked down, like watching a master at work. Tyra Banks, 3 different people just trying to keep her focused at looking at the right camera at the right time. Couldn't remember her lines. She's got a cue card she's reading off and she's flubbing up the questions.
Oh wow!
There's a questions they asked me. I can't remember what the question was. If I rewatched the show, I could tell you which one it is. But there was one question they had to cut and re-ask the question 3 times because she kept misreading it off the card.
Damn.
Well, I guess that's fine. You can do that.
She was nice. She was nice. There was nothing negative about it, but it was. I was really sitting on set, kind of going, "Is this your first day? What the fuck's going on?"
That is great. Big Herm, you got a question?
Trying to think of one.
He's thinking of one over there. He hasn't been on the radio in a while. He's been kind of chilling out.
Right. Hey, Lizardman.
Hey, you know what plays really well on the radio? Thinking. They love that when you think on the radio. That's good radio.
Hey, Lizardman. Mm-hmm. My roommate doesn't believe, and I'm talking to you.
I don't know.
I'm gonna
put yourself on speakerphone.
Where the fuck she go? When she shows back up, you need to holler at her and be like, yeah, this is Lizardman.
All right, before you do that,
she don't believe somebody else. Like, no way. I'm like, believe me. Like, as much as I enjoy my life, there are a lot of people looking to trade places with me. So there's nobody else.
So
right,
what was it like?
Her, she's like, oh yeah, the guy with the forked tongue and shit. And I'm like, yeah, that's him. I'm talking to him right now.
Speaking of
like,
that,
no, you're not. And I'm like, yes, I am.
I got a weird question for you, Lizardman. How many women just come up to you curious what your tongue is like? I have to ask.
Here's the thing about that is, and I said this like back in '97 when I got my tongue. So within a couple of weeks, I'd figured it out real fast. You got a split tongue. I mean, the world was a little different back when nobody knew that a split tongue was a thing. I used to be able to walk into a bar back when I was single in the mid and late '90s and just stick out my tongues and wiggle them around. And then, a certain percentage of women would run away. A certain percent of women would sit there and think to themselves. And usually at least 1 or 2, if not more, would come running to me. Like, that was my pickup line. Just throw it out there and see who wants it.
Just throw it out there. I like it.
It worked for a long time. That's it. People get curious now. I understand it. I mean, I was really excited when I finally found a chick with a forked tongue and got to hook up with her. I was like, 'cause I wanted to know what that was like too from the other side. Awesome. I get it. There's a curiosity factor for a lot of people, and I think now what it is because being 45 and married, I'm just not. I ain't out on the scene a lot. You don't catch me down in the club looking to pick up chicks, so I don't know how it plays that much now. But I still, after shows, there's usually at least, I get that mom, that 30-something-year-old soccer mom that brought her kids in to see the guy from Ripley's, and then she just watched me for a minute and a half, show all the different moves my tongue can do. I see the gears turning in her head. I'm not taking people home left and right like I used to, but I still see those looks and I still get the comments. Old white women do not give a fuck. This is what I've found, like at the festivals, incredibly. It's usually grandma or older mom who's like sneakily pinching my butt in a photo or making a comment about my tongues. Like, that's what I think. There's something about, the older, like, white women, they get to a point where they're just like, fuck it, I'm going to speak my mind to it. I mean, it's great, but it's also like, I've literally been goosed, not feeling it, and fallen off my ballet stage before, and they turn around like, who was that? Was that like, one of my buddies trying to mess with me? Nope, that was Grandma on her way into the show behind me. She thought she'd reach up and grab my ass.
That is great. I have to ask this question. We ask every person we have on an interview, and you're cool with messed up questions, right?
I don't give a fuck. You're not going to offend me.
All right.
Shit, my job is to offend people sometimes, so you're not going to offend me.
Hell yeah. We ask every person on the radio, Lizardman, sir, have you earned your Red Wings?
Have I earned my Red Wings? A long, long time ago, dude. I didn't get out of high school without them.
Hell yeah. That's what's up.
Nice.
A lot of people are disgusted with that question when I ask them. That's great.
I've never gotten that. It's funny because, when I was, a lot younger and, dating girls like that, and then girls that were disgusted by the idea of doing anything, around their period. And I'm like, honey, if I'm into you, I'm into you. And if you happen to be big fucking deal. Like, it's, it's not an issue. That's one of those societal hang-ups where I'm like, what exactly is the fucking problem here? Like, I think that's people looking for something to be annoyed or irritated or disgusted by. Like, it's life, it's bodies. Do you want to fuck or not?
Exactly.
So I have a question.
Do you want to fuck or not?
How was it performing on the Jim Rose Circus? I couldn't find any videos of you on there.
I would be surprised just because my time with them was with Jim was 99 to 2001, and it's just like it doesn't seem that long ago, but you got to remember like how different cell phones were. Like there weren't cameras, you weren't doing cell phone video, so if it wasn't shot professionally, it wasn't shot. So like there's probably footage out there, but you're not going to find it easily because it's not, it also wasn't like uploaded to YouTube because YouTube didn't exist for several years later. Yeah, a lot of that older stuff just hasn't made it on. My time with Jim is one that's rough because Jim and I are ideologically completely different people, and we did not get along. And I just sort of, I took the attitude of it's his show, I'm a cast member, I'm going to do my job and whatever, but I wasn't having fun. I didn't like being around him. I loved being part of a big show like that, touring, whatever, but I mean, here's the main thing you need to understand about Jim Rose is that literally every single person who ever worked with him quit working with him.
Oh, wow.
He didn't retire. He didn't disband the show. He no longer had a show. And at the very end, he was going around as Jim Rose and getting local performers to come, sometimes literally begging local performers to come be part of his show because nobody would work with him anymore. I mean, Torture King and Enigma still like vigorously hate his guts. I've let it go. I don't hold a grudge anymore, but there's no way I would ever be involved in any sort of business dealing with him again. Like, I'd be on a show with him if somebody else was controlling the money, the production, maybe. But, I mean, in my opinion, he's just not a good person, not the sort of person you want to be around. He's the sort of guy that yells at the people that set up the dressing rooms. Because it's 6 o'clock, why isn't there ice on this yet? Hey, calm down, everybody's got a lot of shit to do.
He's getting his just desserts, dude. I mean, I believe in, I don't know if you want to call it karma or whatever. I believe that if you put positive vibes out there, positive shit's going to come back. And your negativity will bring you down ultimately, like you said about the politicians. They don't seem to get in trouble that instant. But, dude, when judgment comes to pass, they will pay. Everybody will pay.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't want to call it karma because that brings in sort of mystical and metaphysical elements. But at the end of the day,
I don't like the karma. Yeah. But that's the only way I can describe it. You know what I mean? Just like the positive and negative flow.
Yeah, you're right about that. And it definitely is a case where, like, or what's the old expression? Like, when you're going up the ladder, be nice. because everybody see you on the way up, you see on the way back down. Jim, in fact, I've heard Jim say that, but he never followed that advice. He pissed off a lot of people on his short run up, and then there was no one to help him slow the descent back down. So I mean, now he
right. Yeah, I mean, you never know. You never know who knows who. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
This dude, you could have beef with this dude, and this, later on down the road, you're like, oh shit.
Well, here's a perfect example of how
his cousin happens to be a major producer. You know what I mean? And he's like, no, fuck you, because you did my cousin dirty.
Well, here's a perfect example of how Jim didn't understand that principle. You see, he came to me because people around him suggested, he knew that Lifto and Enigma were leaving and he had a 99 tour that he was setting up, and he knew that Lifto and Enigma wouldn't do it. And he knew that, Torture King had already long been gone. So he actually had Lifto and this woman, Denise, who did publicity for them in Canada, who knew me, saying, hey, there's this guy in upstate New York. That was right at the beginning. I wasn't even called Lizardman then. It was in the 90s. And they said, he can do all those acts. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. When I got out there, I'm with Jim on the bus, and he's bad-mouthing Lifto for not doing the tour. And I'm like, hey, dude, that's my friend. You're talking about him behind his back. He's not thinking about who knows who and being nice.
Who's got noise in the background?
Yeah, I noticed that. For a second, I thought somebody was trying to say something. I paused. I was like trying to figure out what that is.
Someone's got background noise.
That's me.
Yeah,
my bad.
That's okay, homie. Causes back feed. So what was it like performing with the Space Cowboy? I seen a couple of those videos. He is crazy, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the Space Cowboy, that's the Adelaide Fringe Fest and the Easter show in Sydney. I was talking about, like, Space Cowboy Shane he has done so much for me. And it's funny, like, we've just talked about, Ripley's and Jim Rose and, like, experiences that had bad sides to them. And Space Cowboy had a similar history to mine, like working with people where it didn't work out. He and I, now when we see each other, we have an expression between us. We go, life's too short to work with bad people. And that's why he and I work together so much, because we finally found another person that has, the same values, the same drive, the same love. And yeah, the stuff I've gotten to do with him is amazing. I've done the double sword swallow with him, which is something that he invented with another guy, Lucky Diamond Rich, where one of them hangs upside down and swallows a sword upside down, but it's a double blade. So then he gets lowered down, so the other blade gets lowered into another sword swallower. And he's been the one that's been hanging upside down while I've been standing beneath him swallowing the other blade. Then we saw it in half to free ourselves from each other with an angle grinder. Yeah, but I mean, I remember when he and Lucky Rich first did that stunt, I was like, holy shit, well done, boys. And then like a couple of years later, he goes, hey, you want to take Rich's spot on the ground because he can't do it? I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm in. Like, he's prevented not just getting me down to Australia, but like in the UK and stuff, because he's a world-class, not just sideshow guy, sword swallower, but he's known around the world as a street performer just for doing these great, incredible shows. So I've learned a lot from him, given me a lot of opportunities. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Have you ever caught yourself swallowing swords?
I mean, I've been cut doing a lot of things, but not swallowing swords, because nobody swallows a sharp sword.
Gotcha.
Suicide.
I was always wondering that.
Here's the thing. Sword swallowers swallow dull swords, and this is a line from my show. The reason we swallow dull swords is because if you swallow a sharp sword, you will fucking die. If you swallow a dull sword, you might fucking die. So just for the probability, we're going to go with might die instead of will die.
See, they never tell you that when you watch them on TV shows and stuff. They're actually a dull sword. I've always wondered.
Yeah. Oh, I make a point of it. I always bring up because I want people to understand. That's the whole thing. Sword swallowing is one of those things that's been around for over 4,000 years. Damn. And no matter how many times you prove it's real, there's always somebody going, it's fake, it's fake. So I one of the first things I do is get an audience member, say, take the sword, like feel it. And I'm like, it's strong, it's real. And they're going, I go, but it's not sharp, is it? Do you know why? And then I do that. I explain why it's not sharp. They're like, it's going into my body. If it was sharp, it would kill me.
Yep. So I got a question about a rumor on a video that I saw about you talking about getting implant tail put in.
Oh, See, this is another one that goes back to. Oh no, I was going to say Tyra, but I think this was Lisa. Well, whatever, doesn't matter. Way back, 90s. I was on a talk show and somebody asked the question. They said, "Do you want a tail?" And like just in the moment, off the top of my head, I was like, "Yeah, tail would be pretty cool," but I don't think you could do it. So, then it became people, it's been the follow. It's one of those things that has literally followed me for my entire, public career as a performance artist, because it was one of those first questions I got. And it was like, do you have a tail? Are you getting a tail? I'm like, look, it's not, I do think it would be cool to have a tail, but it is medically, technically impossible to build the tail that I think would be cool. Some people have done like tiny implants, almost like a dog's like cropped tail, like a little nub at the back. I'm like, I don't want that. I want like a fucking alligator tail. I want some shit I can knock people down with. If I can't have that, then I don't want the tail. It's all or nothing for me, man. I either want the good shit or I don't want shit.
If I death roll somebody, I don't want it.
Yeah. So that's where people are always like, "Hey man, are you ever gonna get a tail?" And I'm like, I don't know. Go talk to the scientists, dude. It's just something we can't do now, but I think it would be cool. I also think it would be cool to have wings and shoot lasers out of my eyes, but that shit ain't gonna happen.
Yes.
So I see you're from Kentucky, homie. How long did you live there before you moved up to New York?
I only know that I'm from Kentucky because my parents have a birth certificate that says I was born on base there. That's what it was. My dad was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Nice. And that's where he happened to be stationed in 1972 when my mom had when I came due. I literally do not even know how long we lived there. I know that I have no memories of it. Like I only believe that I was born there and lived there because my parents tell me that we did. I've got no recollection. So it's weird to say that I was born in or from Kentucky because Kentucky has no bearing on my life. Not that it's not a nice place. Like I've been back to Fort Campbell and there's perfectly decent places and people in Kentucky, but it's nothing to do with me. Like I grew up mainly in upstate New York and now I have lived in Texas when not on the road for close to 20 years. So like when people say where are you from, even now I say I'm from Austin because that's giving them a better idea of who I am as a person. Plus nobody's heard of fucking Ellenburg, New York. I can't tell them that.
Well, I have.
Where are you from? Ellenburg, New York. Yeah, you have. Yeah, let's say like I every now and then I will say that. People are like, "Where'd you grow up?" And they Ellenburg, New York. They're like, "Oh, is that close to the city?" I'm like,
every
if you consider 4.5 hours due north, sure.
Exactly. We're up by Vermont, Canada, more not like the city area. Big Herm, homie, go ahead and take question.
Alrighty. So what does your family think of you being Lizardman?
My mom said in an interview one time when they asked her, what is your reaction to what he's done, and at that point I think they were specifically talking about like tattooing my face, and she just said, look, at this point it'd be weirder if he didn't do it. Here's the thing. This isn't something I wasn't going to school to become a fucking accountant and woke up one Tuesday morning and then, you know what, fuck accounting. I'm going to be the Lizard Man. It's not how it happened. This is a very natural, if you look at my entire life, like only my family can, because they're the only people that have been around and seen all of it, you can see a natural progression. The example I usually use is if you take Picasso, look at Picasso's paintings as a young man, and then look at later Cubism just before he died. If you skip the middle part, it's confusing. It's like, well, why did he start painting this? How did this happen? But if you watch him develop as an artist, if you look at his paintings every single year of his life, you see very naturally how he got there. It's the same thing for me. Being a Lizard Man is weird and unusual, yes, compared to everybody else in the world. But if you look at my life and see the different things I've done, what I was interested in, and how I ended up here, you can see how it was a very somewhat gradual and natural progression.
I remember meeting you at the tattoo shop. I was getting my Hatchet Man done, and we were kind of talking a little bit about ICP. Now, if memory serves me right, you said you liked their song Cherry Pie.
You know what? We were talking earlier about ICP and Joe and stuff like that, and I said like they're I got to meet him briefly in '99 when I was on tour with Godsend. We had a day where both tours were in the same city. Like, I think we were on an off day and they were playing, so we went out as their guests and whatnot. So if that was a song that was out at the time, like, I'm just, you know, like, I don't own any albums, but that might have been a song of theirs that I had been hearing, and like that struck me. So I'm sure at the time I was like, yeah, that's, but right now I couldn't actually like tell you what that song is, like, you know. But I'm not that with music. I'm very sort of fleeting, like, especially with stuff that's coming along. Like, I might hear something from a band that just came out and be like, oh yeah, I like that song, and then I might forget about them and not come back to it. Like, my brain's like that with music. I don't focus in as tightly as it seems other people do. You know,
ICP is the reason I'm doing my radio. I started because I'm hearing underground artists, man. They got like 50 views on their music, and I'm just here to help them out, trying to get them a bigger fan base. Like the guy on with you, I'm going to be interviewing him after your interview. He's got 50 views on his music, and he's freaking extremely good. I won't even listen to mainstream anymore.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that it's the whole thing about especially if you want to like do anything, you know, I don't want to say commercial, but if you want to sell your music like it, the problem isn't for a lot of people, because there are a lot of talented people in the world. The problem isn't the fact that they don't have the talent or that they're not working hard enough. It's that how do you get other people to notice it, right? How do you in a world of, and this is one of my favorite of my own little lines, so I'll just quote myself because I love myself that much, is that in a world of 7.5 billion people, everyone is an insignificant cunt. Nobody fucking matters, right? There are so many people that it's like, literally, like, doesn't matter. President Barack Obama, Donald Trump, you know, it doesn't matter how big you rule a whole country. You're still 1 out of 7.5 billion. You're fucking meaningless. We can do without you. You know, we are all insignificant at that level. So then it becomes like, well, then how do I get some of these other people to notice what the fuck I'm doing over here? That's more of a challenge than coming up with a good idea and putting the work into it. Because you know, we all know that the most talented guitar player in the world is sitting in somebody's basement right now practicing his scales because nobody's found him.
Exactly.
You got to put yourself out there.
Yeah,
you ever met Marilyn Manson?
No, I've actually never met Manson.
Nice.
I have a number of friends that have worked closely with him on projects. I've met a couple of, I know a lot of his techs for the band when they're on tour. A lot of those guys have been techs on tours I've done. So he's one of those people that's like a degree or two of separation away, that just, you know, it seems like I could have very easily met him randomly at some point, but it didn't happen.
What about his bass player, Andy Garrell? Ever heard of him?
I have, but I'm not sure.
I've interviewed him.
Where there's you gotta give me like a little bit of a 90s party credit, where it's like sometimes people are like, hey, I met you at such, and I'm like, I'll take your word for it. Like,
I hear you.
Yeah, cause I don't necessarily remember everything. There's a picture of me in Las Vegas having a conversation with Carrot Top that I have absolutely no like, if you had asked me before I saw that picture if I'd ever met Carrot Top, I'd say no. But it turns out that one of my buddies on tour, and we had just done a show at the House of Blues in Mandalay Bay. We went to Red Square, the bar there, and he was there. And apparently, while I was in a complete blackout drunk, I had a half-an-hour conversation at the bar with Carrot Top that I don't remember, but there are pictures of.
That's what's up. Hey, do you remember the Green Room in Plattsburgh? The bar?
Yeah, vaguely. Like, I remember that it was a thing.
Still is.
You know,
it's really big.
Really.
Now. Oh yeah, they've remodeled the whole place. They've always got bands like 3 times a week now.
Right. See, that's what I've always sort of felt, that, you know, with the college there, that Plattsburgh should have had a better scene. Like, and even when I was doing my graduate work down in Albany, I was always like, where the fuck are the venues? Like, there are thousands of students here that would love to go out to something decent, but there's not a lot on offer.
It's mainly factories now, Plattsburgh is. I'm thinking about moving back.
I mean, I knew that when they started doing some of the customs control areas around there, that was going to be a big thing for the shipping and industry, that was the play they were making to try and revitalize. They
did a good job. The only problem is 99% of the places now are Canadian owned.
Right.
So
and it's because they couldn't get the American money, and the Canadian money wants to be there.
exactly, it's a cheap place too, the electricity and all that.
Yeah. Oh no, you know, it's one of those things where every now and then somebody's like, "Oh, would you ever move back up there?" I'm like, if they got rid of winter, in a heartbeat. But I'm like,
Right.
I didn't move to Texas because I was having a good time in New York winters for 27 years.
Negative 25 right now, man. I don't know why the hell. I've
Yeah,
only
dude.
been back in New York for 5 months. I was down in Walton, Kentucky for 5 years. I miss
Okay.
it.
Yeah, dude, it got down into the 30s here in Austin the last few days,
Oh, wow.
and everybody, including myself, is losing their mind because I'm like, this is exactly the sort of shit that was never supposed to happen to me again. Like, I don't own this kind of clothing anymore. I'm like, I don't have a good. Well, I do have a good heavy jacket because when I'm traveling and whatever. But I'm like the rest of my wardrobe ain't cut out for this shit. Like, I generally do not go places that are this cold anymore.
Now I have a
Bro, I
a
got
question.
I got a cousin that lives down by you, Dallas.
Yep.
And you can tell who you natives are and who are foreigners. Because when it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
50 degrees out, we're wearing short and t-shirts. And
Yep.
y'all like bundled up like it's goddamn business selling that shit.
Yeah, and I always told people, like, the first couple of years when I was down here, you know, you get like one cold day and whatever, and people be like, "But you moved, you used to be used to this shit." I'm like, "Fuck you! I went native the minute I got here."
Exactly. Same way in Kentucky, man. I come back up here and this weather's killing me. So I have a question. What made you decide to get implants for your eyebrows?
What happened with my implants was I had started sort of following heavier modification more closely in the early '90s, and I saw what Steve Hayworth did with Lifto and Enigma, and with their implants, and I thought that was kind of cool. And so when I was sort of looking into him more, and eventually he became a close friend, and he did my implants.
Nice.
I saw somebody else in his portfolio, this guy Chris Chrome, who was an old friend, artist friend of Steve's, who had this small round implants put over one of his eyebrows, just to give him like one. It's kind of like a smaller version of the ridges that are over my eyes, and that's what. When I saw that, I had this immediate click where I was like, I could do a different sort of ridge, but like that, and have it be kind of more reptilian like that. It clicked in my head. But then that was, it was then it took years for me to get in contact with Steve and actually work it out and have the implants done. But I mean, the basic impulse was I had, because I had been working on the idea of Lizardman for many, many years, and just sort of designing and sketching the tattooed ideas and like that. And I'd been thinking about teeth sharpening and stretching my ears and, the tongue splitting and all that. Well, when the implants came along, I was like, oh, look at this new thing. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That was when I saw Lifto and Enigma with it. But I didn't really, I was like, yeah, but I don't know if that's for me. And did it fit? And I was like, no, it was just sort of a cool thing people did. When I saw Chris Chrome's eyebrow, I was like, I can build off that and do something that does fit for me. And as soon as that clicked in my head, I was like, I'm going to do it.
Hell yeah. Big Herm, you got a question?
Alrighty. Let's see here. How much do you think you spent on your tattoos?
I've never kept a tally, and the reason for that is because I don't think that cost of materials is something you factor into an artwork, right? Like, you don't go to a museum and be like, man, I wonder how much that block of marble was worth before he carved it into a statue, or how much did he spend on paint for that painting. So I don't have an accurate tally. Everything has been done at pretty reduced rates, if not free. Like, I'm one of those people, I believe adamantly that if somebody, helps you out, that you give what you can, even if they are hooking you up. You feel like, somebody's going to tattoo you for free, you still give them a tip. It's sort of a principle of the thing. So I've definitely spent quite a bit. I would say, if we're going to count in, like, for a while, I was traveling like 2.5 hours each way to get tattooed, like the commuting and stuff like that. It's probably at least $10,000 or more at this point, but that's a lot cheaper than it should be. Like, if you were paying quote unquote retail rates, like I was paying the hourly rate to any of these artists that they deserve, it would have been a lot more.
Oh yeah.
There was a TV show, I think it was a UK show that did it. They went to, it wasn't Lloyd's of London, but it was one of those places like that. There's insurance companies that will insure anything like dancers' legs or horses, whatever. And they said to them, they're like, hey, what is this guy worth insurance-wise? If he wanted an insurance policy on his tattoos and his look. And they went for $250,000. Can't remember if it was $250,000 or pounds, but that's what it was, and that was a few years ago. So I always say I hope I'm up to $500,000 by now.
Oh, wow. So I have a question. What do you think of them building a statue of you on Ripley's Believe It or Not? Did you actually have to be there in person for that?
Yeah, I definitely had to be there. It was a 2-day process for them just to cast my body. We did 2 back-to-back 12-hour days where all they were doing was putting me in big casts and getting, just molds of my entire body. After that, they made the first one, and the former head of their art department, who's also a guy that's worked with George Romero and a lot of others doing like movie props and anatomical stuff. He spent close to 200 hours hand painting the first one, so they would have a detail model. And of course, they took photos of my body and we get all the details right. And then it took them. We did the first one in 2000, or we announced and revealed the first one in 2010 when it was finally done. And it's only within the last year or two that they've actually gotten them all finished and into every museum in the world.
I was going to say,
I'm the first.
I saw one in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. They've got a Ripley's Believe It or Not museum.
Yep, and I'm the first and only living performer to have a statue in all of their museums. It used to be that any person that you saw in the museum depicted as a statue or any sort of thing they had to create, that person was already dead. They would have still images and videos of live people like from the TV show, but they didn't have exhibits like crafted statues and such of live people. I was the test one, and people responded so well to my statue when they first put it up in New York City that they then made 33 more of them and put them in every museum around the world. I mean, for me, like, how do I feel about that? I'm proud as fuck about that. Like, there's stuff in Ripley's that's over 100 years old. So to me, that's legacy. Like, I know that as long as there's a Ripley's, there will be a Lizardman, and there will be people learning about Lizardman and knowing about my life long after I'm gone. I mean, that's immortality.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Big Herm, you got a question? It's all quiet over there. Got to get back into the flow.
Over in the corner here with the
yeah, he's got to get back into the flow. I'll ask one. Do you smoke any weed, homie? And if you do, what's your choice of weed?
Do I smoke any weed? Every fucking day, man. I'm my own green little Snoop Dogg in my world.
Hell yeah.
Here's what I tell you is I started drinking, like, alcohol became a regular part of my life when I was about 14, and I sold a little bit of weed as a teenager, but didn't get real into it. Smoke now and then like that, but I was by no means, the classic stoner. I wasn't that guy. I wasn't known for smoking marijuana. And I was a hardcore drinker, and that went through my 20s, and, of course, touring on alcohol-sponsored tours and everything, the alcohol. What got me around to smoking weed more regularly, and now has me as basically an everyday smoker, was using it to drink more responsibly. Like, it's the whole thing, right? It's the whole thing about weed isn't a drug. It's what we use after we do drugs to cope with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. As for favorite, I'm a weed is weed. Like, I'm not one of these guys with an elaborate chemistry set and fucking fire equipment doing dabs and whatever. Like, there's a good friend of mine, great stand-up comic, Chris Cubis, likes to say, he goes, I smoke weed. That's what I do. I take weed and I smoke it. I don't distill it and put it into little vaporizer pens or all of this like that. I don't melt it and dab it. I don't shoot it through a microwave. He goes, all I want to do is smoke weed. If you've got weed, we can smoke it. Everything else, what the hell are we doing? I do like edibles too, though. I'm probably about a half a gram to a gram a day smoker, depending on what I've got to get done. Like we were talking about before, like I'm a functional pothead now. I mean, I work constantly. I'm able to do my work while I'm high.
Hell yeah. I got someone hitting me up on Facebook asking about you suspending yourself from your ears.
Ears, no. I've suspended other things. I've suspended children and little people from my ears before. I mean, I've got the world's record for the heaviest weight lifted and spun from my ears, which is my KGAC that I've been doing, forever. And I'm the only person that does helicopter spins with it. So they gave me the record for that, but it's also technically the heaviest weight lifted. There's a couple of guys out there that I know could almost certainly beat my current record, and probably will at one point. But for me, it was a thing like, modern Pierce weightlifters, like Lifto's the top of the heap. He was the first guy to like publicly really bring Pierce weightlifting back in. And it does go back, over a century. Rasmus Nielsen, late 1800s, was an incredible Pierce weightlifter. But, it's just something that people didn't see, so it fell out. You didn't have it. Lifto really helped bring it back. And then I was always really proud of, like, I took my ears to a point where a lot of other people hadn't. But, I mean, it's like anything else. If you were a gold medal sprinter in 1910, you're slow as fuck in 2018. It's like what I did at the time and what I've done so far has been really impressive and kind of set the bar. But I know there are people out there ready to move that bar up even higher, and I encourage them. I mean, that's kind of the point of a record, right? Is to just keep pushing the limit. It's not to be like, hey, I set a record, nobody else do it. Fuck that. No.
Right.
It's to set a bar so that basically, in my mind, when you set a record, you're announcing to the rest of the world, somebody come beat this. You're inviting it.
How many records do you hold?
I'm not entirely sure, because here's the thing about world records is there are Guinness World Records are specific because those are the ones that Guinness recognizes. And some of the records that they recognize aren't the records. Like, I could take a Guinness record book and point to you dozens of things in there where the records have been beaten. But it's by the branding, right? So there's all these different groups that certify world records. And it's who gives you the title, and sometimes they, compete and argue with each other and whatnot. I have definitely set or been part of setting at least 5 world records. Beyond that, there's a few others I don't know. And then, a lot of like modern records, we're at the point where we're inventing shit, right? So there's the record for the longest distance pulling a vehicle with your ears, which I think I had that at one point. Somebody else might have it now. There's a lot of these things where we just invent stuff, or like to take like the corkscrew that I have, the giant corkscrew I put through my
your
head.
nose.
Like there's another guy that, and there's another guy that does that, and he has a record for the longest corkscrew put through his head. So I'm like, well, to beat that record, all I have to do is build a longer corkscrew. Yeah. But to me, I'm kind of like, that record's kind of silly because it's all about the length of the corkscrew. The stunt doesn't change, right? It doesn't get any harder or easier by the length of it. It's just the length. It'd be like saying, I have the world's largest pole. Well, I'm going to go cut down a bigger tree and make a bigger pole. I don't know if I need to do that. Yeah.
So I have a question, man. I was doing some studying on you, and I see you have a degree in, I'm not going to be able to say this tonight. I'm kind of stoned myself right now. Philosophy. God, can't even say it. PHILO.
Philosophy.
There we
Philosophy.
go.
Yeah.
You ever do anything with that?
I was waiting to get it. You had me wondering for a second. I was wondering what you were going to say, because I was like, well, certainly he can say philosophy. Like, what is he actually trying to? I was waiting for you to say some sort of weird thing, and me be like, no. Yeah. Apparently.
Oh man.
You're making me jealous. I'm obviously not high enough. I'm going to have to go to my office and lay something up. I get that advantage being on the phone. I got my degree in philosophy from Hartwick in Oneonta, New York. That was my undergraduate degree. And while I was there, I also did an independent study in performance art. Nice. I then went on to graduate school where I was trying to do my doctorate in philosophy. And ultimately what happened was I was getting enough work performing that I quit grad school, because grad school I was racking up student loan debt, and going out and performing I was making money. So it's a pretty easy choice, really. I was like, I'm going to go do the thing that pays me instead of cost money. And So, I mean, I wouldn't, like, professionally, I haven't done much with my degree, but because my degree is in philosophy, and I do think of myself as a philosopher in a lot of ways, it's what I learned in the process of getting a degree in philosophy. I learned how to approach problems. You know, I learned logic and different ways of thinking that I now very much do use, but I don't use them to do, like, I don't get paid to do philosophy, but philosophy helps me get paid because it helps me do what I do in the best possible way.
Well, we can definitely say you did something with the Bachelor for Arts, because your whole body's an art.
Yeah,
now.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, that one's a little bit more obvious.
All right, we're gonna hop off here, and we're gonna go to another interview.
Cool,
I want to thank Lizardman for hopping on. Is there anything on this interview we have not covered you'd like to talk about? Any more upcoming tours or anything?
Nah, you know, I'm real casual about that unless I got something that's gonna like hard promote and hit. But you know, most of the time when I'm doing something like this, I just want to have some fun for a little while, talk to some good people, have it. And you know, if anybody listening, let them go have fun. Don't the internet. And this is as a nerd who's been on the internet since the late '80s, before a lot of people even knew it existed. I would say this: don't let the modern internet do what it does so well, which is funnel you into your own little bubbles and echo chambers. Like,
Yep.
just don't even go to my website. Google me and look at all the other shit. Go down some wormholes. Go find some rabid shit. I mean, I know there's somebody out there who's probably got some fucking Tumblr blog about how I'm a horrible human being. Go find that shit and read it just for fun. But like, don't just take what the app sends you to or what the website sends you to. Like, go look around the fucking internet. There's a lot better shit out there than what you're seeing on fucking Facebook every day in your curated feed. Like, just punch in a random word. Go do a Google search for purple rhinoceros and have some fucking fun.
I agree, homie. The internet, I think, there's one more question. Do you think the internet has helped out people like you, art, performance, musicians? What do you think?
I think what happened, well, I know for a fact, in my case, the internet played a huge role in my success because it's the way that TV and film people were able to find me and give me work. When I had no way of, like, I didn't have anybody's number in LA. I wasn't calling people going like, hey dude, I hear about this TV show. Can I get on it? No, they found me, and the way they found me was through the internet. But that was in the 90s. I feel like now what has happened was, I think the internet has done amazing things for the arts and for artists, but we have reached a plateau. We're getting diminishing returns. Like in the 90s, it was like, oh my God, all of a sudden some dude in Spain is looking at my paintings or reading my poetry or watching my video. Oh my God, I'm getting around the world. People are finding it. And what's happened now is that, look, people and money ruin everything. And we're long past the point of no return on the internet. It's become such a business now that you get shit like Patreon, recently trying to change their fee structure to fuck people over. It's like, you're taking everything that's good about the internet and not even slowly, like actually pretty rapidly ruining it. Like, yeah, the internet has been amazing for artists and the arts, but we are now, and not just now, I think for a while now, we've been seeing how it's starting to turn, and it's because everybody's trying to squeeze a buck out of it. If it's not worth $1, it's not worth it. And that's the wrong attitude for the arts, for so many things. Like, look, healthcare is fucked because you don't run healthcare for a profit.
Yep.
Arts are the same way. Art is about developing and enriching culture. This is why, in Vegas used to be the entertainment capital of the world, because you could have amazing stage shows that didn't need to make money. The casino made the money, and the stage show was just an added extra. But it let people do incredible stuff. And then one day, 20, 30 years ago, the casinos started going, well, hey, what if the theater made money too? And the greed just got to a point where now in Vegas, shows don't last as long anymore. And I've got a good buddy who was on America's Got Talent, Ryan Stock. He was the sword swallower who was on there. He did a run at the Hooters Casino. I was just hanging out with him, and I was talking to him about the actual financials. I'm doing a show in Vegas now, and he was like, 40% of the tickets, 40% of the net on that show is gone before they even start dividing it up, just for the producers' fee and all the other shit that's there. they make it impossible to make money. Like, you can have a show that's generating tens of thousands of dollars in ticket sales, but you're not making shit. Because it's all getting split so many different ways and pulled around. And that's where I think we're headed, like, internet-wise. It used to be like, hey, you know, put your song online, then people would, like, you know, PayPal you money and you'd send them an album, and that was working out great for people. Now we've got a bunch of middlemen coming in going, well, we smooth out the process here at Patreon and put you in contact with it. Yeah, but you also siphon off all the fucking money.
It's not just that. There's so many ways to get the music off the internet now for free. It doesn't matter what site you put a song on, you can just go download it.
Yeah, and I have mixed feelings about that because there is a piracy of it. But I think, like, most of the studies have shown that people who pirate music also buy music. Is that, you know, very often the pirates are the hardcore fans who couldn't find a way to buy it legally because it's, you know, it's a UK release only or whatever like that. Exactly. It's, you know, you end up punishing your own fans. So I feel like, you know, and that's what a lot of people have said to me, like, oh, I should monetize like my YouTube account or something. I'm like, I don't want to be that person. I want to be a YouTube, you know, account where I'm like, oh shit, it's Wednesday, got to make another $5, better put up another YouTube video. I'm like, no, I'll put my shit up there, and I'm not going to get any money from ad revenue like that. But if somebody watches that and then comes and sees me live, that's what I care about. That's what I want. I want you, when you have an opportunity to see me live, when I come to your neighborhood, to say, I'm not going to miss this. So in that regard, I'm all right, because I will throw stuff out there for free like crazy to be like, hey, this is all just to convince you to come see my show. But I'm in a slightly different boat than your traditional musician who has to have that physical product as well. You know, it's we're not gonna solve that problem tonight.
No, merch, man. Like I tell every artist that hit me up, they're like, how do I make money with my music? I'm like, you're not going to unless you have merch. T-shirts, hats.
Yeah.
I mean, posters.
Well, it's
about the only way.
It's one of those things, like, you know, Mitch Hedberg talked about comedy and writing. He's like, well, it's like saying, oh, you can cook. Can you farm? And being like, well, I want to cook. It's like, yeah, the reality of being an independent artist is that your job isn't your art. Your job is your merch business. But your merch business only exists because of your art. It's like, yeah, you're not going to make money off your art. You're going to make money off the corollaries of your art.
Exactly. All right, we're going to hop off here, and then we're going to cut over to another interview. Any shout-outs you want to do, Lizardman, before you hop off?
Yeah, you know what? You actually brought up a lot of them for me. You brought up Space Cowboy and all those guys. But
I did a lot of research for this.
Hey. Here's a shout out to everybody who actually fucking listened to this thing, because if you're listening to this, I know if you're listening to this, you're a good person in my book. Not because you're listening to me be on an episode of it, but like I got the feel like from you guys now talking, you get a little vibe off people like that. Anybody who's listening to your show is going to be a passionate fan. Is going to be somebody who gives a shit about the stuff they go out to see and that they listen to. So that tells me right away, like, if this is the sort of show you do, you got to have a cool audience. So shout out to your audience.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. And I definitely have a kick-ass audience. All right, this is DJ Snickers. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. I want to give another shout out to Lizardman. Thank you, homie. You have a good night.
Thank you.
Good luck on your tour.
Brother. Thanks, man.